rocks and health might seem a bit unusual. Now, as I told you this morning, we have to think differently. Now, you might ask the question, what has rocks got to do with health? That is why I said we think differently. I start with this story which I usually say when I start this lecture. One day, a relation of mine died, and I attended the funeral, and after the cremation I had to go to the place, crematorium, and with my relations collect the ashes of the dead body. So when I looked at the ashes, it's white, powdery material, right? It was placed in a little pot-like thing, white, powdery material. Now you know what a rock is like. You have seen enough rocks all over. A rock is a collection of aggregate of minerals, and if you crush this rock into powder, that also looks just like that ashes of that person who died. Very similar. Now, what I'm trying to show you is that even though one was a human being with life, and the other was a rock, very different things. Appears to be very different, but basically now you see two powders, and if you sort of keep it together, why it's sometimes might be difficult to say this is a rock and this is a human being. Powders are both more or less the same. Both were made of the same elements in the periodic table. So that shows that whatever the form, the appearance is, materials are made of the same chemical elements. So therefore there is a cycle, the geochemical cycle, which we will discuss a little later, and how important those geochemical cycles are. Now, if you look at the earth, you will find that you can divide this earth into 4 different spheres. Hydrosphere, which is the water, not just the oceans, but reservoirs, underground water, water in rocks, all that. Atmosphere, you know what it is. Lithosphere is the sphere consisting of rocks, soils and so on, and biosphere, life. So these 4 spheres are always interacting together, very close interaction. If that is so, rocks which come in the lithosphere and health which will come in the biosphere will still be interacting. So that means there is a basis. That means rocks might have some effect on health because of this interaction. Let's see. Now, this subject of geology, which is not sort of taught as such in your schools, but you have some idea, it may appear remote from human health. However, rocks are the fundamental building blocks of the Earth's surface, full of important minerals and chemical elements. Now, what happens is, the Earth is made of rocks, and the rocks start weathering because of the action of water, acids and so on. The rocks become loose It starts weathering, and what do you get? Soils. In Sinhalese we say Pashana Dirapatteno Jiranena Assaya. So from rocks you get soils. And because we have soils, plants can grow. Very difficult for a plant to grow on a rock. You get some things like lichens and so on, mosses, but not big plants. So if you want plants to grow, the rock must be converted to soil. And of course you need water. So soil plus water can help plants to grow. So then you can argue, if there were no rocks on earth, there will be no life. So these are the fundamental building blocks. Life actually started because rocks were there, rocks became soil, and plants grew on the soil, and then food production, and life started forming. So this is therefore very important, these rocks. See this kind of thing, a very familiar sight. All these are made of rocks. Rocks are made of minerals. Under a microscope, you can see these minerals. So this is a closer view of a rock. Sometimes you get these bands. The white bands will have different minerals, generally silica, quartz. The black bands will have some other minerals, mica, hornblende. You will learn these things later in the later years. So these are the main minerals, the main features of a rock. You see, even a closer look, you find even smaller bands separating the black minerals from the white minerals. Right? And this is how it looks, how it appears under a microscope. You can make a thin section, you can cut a rock so thin that you can put it under a microscope and have a look at it. Using a diamond wheel, you can cut the rock into a very, very thin, like a razor blade, as thin as a razor blade, and look at it under the microscope, and you will see different minerals, what I showed you. A mineral is a chemical compound, basically. Quartz is SiO2, silica, like that. Calcite is calcium carbonate, like that you get minerals in these rocks. So, the relation between rocks, minerals and human health has been known for centuries. Our ancient people actually knew about this relation between the rocks and the minerals and health. Now, this is something very, very important that you should remember even at these very early stages. There was this famous person, he was a scientist, a peculiar person. He used to fight with his friends all the time. He used to fight with his colleagues, other scientists. But he was a brilliant man. His name is Paracelsus. He was born in 1493, lived till 1541, and he said the right dose differentiates a poison and a remedy. What does that mean? That means the amount. If you take something, it is the amount which makes it either a poison or a useful thing. Now I'll give you some examples. If you take iron, you know, some of you may be taking iron tablets. You don't have enough iron, the doctor prescribes iron. Hemoglobin, you have blood count is low, doctor says take iron tablets, iron tonics and so on. Now if you take a lot of iron, if you drink bottles and bottles of iron tonic, what will happen? You will get another disease because of excess iron, because there's too much iron. If you take calcium, which is good, again if you take lots and lots of calcium tablets, you will have hypercalcemia, a disease, because there's too much. Similarly, sodium, potassium, whatever vitamins, if you take too much, you get a disease. If you don't take enough, also you get a disease. So you have to take the right amount. That is what he's saying. It is the right dose which matters. If you drink water, everybody says, the doctors say you must drink a lot of water. But if you drink too much water, what happens? Also you can have serious problems. In fact, I'll tell you a story. In Canada, there was a water drinking competition. These competitions are there. The men drink beer sometimes, beer drinking competitions. Some people gulp down bottles and bottles of beer and they win the competition. Like that, there was this competition in Canada where they said, okay, if you drink the highest amount of water, you get the prize. So there was this lady, a Canadian lady, who came there and was gulping down liters and liters of water. She won the prize. Large amount of liters of water, amounts of water. After half an hour, she took the prize and went home. After half an hour, she was complaining of a headache. And then it got worse. And then she went to the hospital. She was taken to the hospital, and due to brain damage, she died. Now that example shows if you exceed the limit, it can be very, very disastrous, very dangerous. So whether it is a very good thing like a vitamin or a bad thing, whatever, the right amount is the rule, correct dose. So that applies now, I'll tell you, to many things as we go along. Now this diagram is very important. What it is trying to show is, now you have the rocks, you have the soils, you have the water, you have the air, and you have a human being there, and you have plants and animals. Now as I said, all these things are connected, interconnected. Ekin ekata sambandhai, right? In Sinhalese. Right? Water, you see that from those arrows, the human being is only a part of the whole cycle. Just like a rock, as I said, just like a plant or water. Human beings are only a part of the entire cycle. So elements, calcium, sodium, magnesium, whatever, can move from water, soil, to the plant, to the human being, out again. So it is a cycle, chakrak. So the human beings therefore are influenced, on the rocks, on the soil, on the chemistry of the plants, on the chemistry of the rocks, chemistry of the water. There. Now if he is drinking water there, and the water has a special chemistry, that chemistry will have an effect on his health. People living in Jaffna will have a lot of calcium in their water because the rocks underneath are limestones full of calcium, carbonates. Nuareli area, different. So the people living in those areas, their bodies will get different elements, different quantities, different amounts of those elements. In the south, Gaul, Matara, those areas, you will have a lot of iron and aluminium and things because you get kabuk, laterites, kabuk. So the water and things are rich in those elements. That's why I say the human being is influenced, affected by the environment in which he lives. People living in Jaffna, as I said, have a special environment. Can be special. Martale may be something else. Coastal areas, another environment. Mountainous areas, different. So the chemistry of those rocks, chemistry of those soils, chemistry of the water will have a special effect on the health of those people. Now I'll give you examples. So you have this periodic table, you are very familiar with this, and you can classify, you can classify this as essential and toxic. You see essential elements, sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chromium, all these things, nitrogen, phosphorus and so on. Essential, useful, important for the body. Toxic means poison. Lead, cadmium, mercury, these are dangerous things, poison. But don't forget, what I told you earlier, even sodium, potassium, calcium, essential, they are essential, but if you take too much, that also becomes a poison. So it is always the correct amount which is important, right? So this, have a look at this diagram. What this diagram shows, the first one is the concentration of the metal, the amount of the metal, and this side it shows, the, say take a plant, the growth, right? So we'll say example, essential element, copper, zinc, they are essential for enzymes. So if the copper level is very low, the yield is also very low, you can see. So gradually, if the concentration is more and more, the plant grows better and better and better till it reaches that amount. After that, it is flat. So that means that is the best level, highest growth, best concentration. Now if you take some more, if the plant gets more and more copper or zinc, then it becomes poison. See, then goes down again. Same element, same useful element, which was so important, now becomes a poison because it has too much. So that is why the middle path, optimal, ideal, the best part is the important. That is what you should get. For our human bodies also, you should get the correct amount, ideal situation. So we will consider our case, Sri Lanka, a little bit. We are in this humid tropical environment, lot of rainfall, dry seasons and wet seasons, extensive rock weathering. Rocks start weathering, pashana jirne adhika, right? Because of the rain, becomes very loose soon. Intensive leaching of essential elements. So the elements in the rocks will go with the water and get leached out, taken out, dissolved. That's what happens in these humid tropical areas. So therefore you can expect sometimes the soils are very, very poor in these essential elements. Leach. Not enough. Not enough essential elements, the plants don't grow very well. Not enough good elements. That is why in some African countries, no agriculture, because the soils are so bad. So you have to put fertilizers, artificial. So here you have this, the distribution of these tropical countries, Sri Lanka, you see middle of Africa, parts of South America and so on, right? These countries have a special way, a special environment regarding rocks and soils. Well, same kind of diagram. Earlier I showed you the best part is now here. This is Ussangoda. Some of you may know this. Ussangoda down south in the Hambantota area near the sea. Now you see this diagram, you see hardly any vegetation, hardly any plants in this area, except at the back you get some trees there. Now why is this? The color of the soil is red, some green patches. Green is small plants like grass, but no big plants. Why is this? Because the rocks under this are very special rocks full of nickel, full of chromium, vanadium, titanium, zinc, copper and things. Very rich. That rock is a rock called serpentinite. Serpentinite කියන භාෂාව යට තියෙන්නේ. And because of that, there's a lot of nickel, cobalt, chromium and things. So plants can't grow too much. It's poison. So this is a special area. And the water in this area will also be special. So people drinking this water will have a special chemistry in their bodies. Now here, very familiar thing, you have a well, water well, lidak. You see the water and you see the soil layers there. So the water has a chemistry depending on the soil, the chemistry of the soil, because from the soil it goes into the water, the elements. So if the soil is very rich in calcium, the water will be hard, kiul vatur. If not something, if it is rich in iron, you get malakadaraha, iron taste, very bad water. This one is a tube well, nalalida. There the water comes from the rock, not from the soil. You see at the bottom, fractures, cracks. Water comes through the cracks into the tube well, and the chemistry of the rock is now reflected in the water, tube well. So the tube well can be different from the normal well. So you see a tube well there. In the dry zone mostly, you have these wells because people don't have water, and on top, I don't know whether you can see that normal well. You see a yellow board there. I don't think you can read it here on the bell. It says, "Me linde jale bijimata sudusui." This water is suitable for drinking or not. I don't know if you can see it, but maybe it says okay for drinking. Sometimes the water is not good. Then the water board says this well is bad. You shouldn't drink this. In the dry zone, you get lots of these things. So you see that how the soils and the rocks are important for the chemistry of the water, and those children there, that child, drinking the water from the tube well will have chemical elements going into his body through the water. Now here, these children are drinking directly from the tube well. Now if the water is really bad, there can be a disaster. I will show you some examples what is happening in the dry zone. So this element, this iron, fluoride coming from fluorine, fluoride is iron, is very special because it is very reactive. Pratikriyawa adhikai. Most electronegative and chemically reactive of all halides, chloride, bromide, iodide, fluoride, all that. Fluoride is the most reactive. Right? It is very similar to the hydroxyl group, OH minus. Size is the same, 1.36 and 1.40 angstroms. Very similar. Charge is the same, F minus, 1 minus, OH 1 minus. So what happens? It can exchange. When there is a OH group, F minus can take the place, Adesharima, substitution, right? So fluoride is found in soil, water, plants, rocks, lot of it in rocks. So then what happens from the rocks, it goes into the water very easily because of that ionic exchange. That is why fluoride is very high in the dry zone because fluoride rich rocks are there and the water becomes very rich in fluoride. So that the World Health Organization says if you have a concentration of 0 to 0.5 milligrams per liter, you get holes in your teeth. If you get 0.5 to 1.5, very good, ideal, that's the best level. More than 1.5 to 4, you get fluorosis, the disease. And more than 4, up to more than 10, your legs and bones will become crippled. I'll show you. So you see the correct amount is the most important thing. There you are. Now this is a picture from Sri Lanka, Anuradhapura, a person. What happens is you see the teeth brown in the middle. Especially in the middle, upper teeth. What has happened is now this teeth, the top part is called enamel, which is the hardest substance in the human body, made of a mineral called apatite, which is calcium hydroxyphosphate. Now I remember calcium hydroxy. I told you hydroxy OH minus. When you take too much fluoride water, the F minus now gets into the hydroxyl group of the enamel. Exchange. OH minus, one charge, one minus, F minus, one minus, same size. The enamel becomes now not hydroxy phosphate but fluorophosphate. The more fluoride that gets in, the tooth becomes harder and harder, brown, more and more brown. You go to the dry zone anywhere and look at the teeth of children, you will see this. All over Sri Lanka in the dry zone. See, that is because directly from the rocks into the water, into the body. How the rocks now are now affecting the health. Very bad because it's not nice when you have teeth like this. You can't remove this unless you use acid. See how bad, how difficult it is. Acid bleaching. It's very, very hard, very brown. Sometimes it can be terrible, much worse than this. Right? Here, this is called dental fluorosis, which is found in Sri Lanka. Now this boy from Nochiagama, Mahavilacha, I think, dry zone, we found him and we asked him to show his teeth. Because he was drinking this water rich in fluoride. And there you are. See how bad the teeth is. This is because of the groundwater fluoride. He doesn't know why. He just drinks from the water well. The water has far, far too much of fluoride. It's a pity because it's so awful, I mean. And then what happens? If you still take some more and more and more fluoride, it gets into the bones. And the bones become thin and very hard. If you fall down, it breaks. Look at that man. It's all bent. The reason is the vertebrae, I'll show you in this man especially. You see this spinal cord, you have spaces between these vertebrae. That is why you can move, flexible. But with fluoride, here you have space. But with fluoride, this becomes narrower and narrower. It fuses. It becomes like a stick. Imagine a stick tied to your back. Then you can't move because the vertebrae don't move. So that is what happens when you take fluoride. This is from Sri Lanka. Fluoride makes the bones grow and fuses. The bones can't move and you get skeletal fluorosis. That man was having that disease. Extremely painful, very, very bad. Directly from the rocks to the water to the body. Now we produce these maps showing the dark colors. All this area, the fluoride in the water, this is from the water, is very, very high. Those blue dots are from tube wells. Water from tube wells, fluoride levels extremely high. Not in the wet zone because the water is leached out, the fluoride is leached out. A lot of rain, fluoride gets leached out. But in the dry zone it evaporates. Water gets evaporated. Vashpavima නිසා, lot of fluoride. That is why those people in these areas have this fluorosis disease. See? Now what can you do about this? You can remove the fluoride. So we have fluoride filters using bricks, tiles, and given to these poor people to filter the groundwater to remove the fluoride. Now this is where I said you can do something. You all are intelligent people. You can find a technique for the villagers, poor people, how to remove fluoride at home. Without spending a lot of money, they are very poor people. How can you remove fluoride from the water well so that they don't get this disease? This is the kind of thinking I want you all to think carefully. Use your knowledge and see what you can do for these people. Right, so that was one example. That was fluoride, which is from Sri Lanka. Now this is another big problem. You are familiar with this. Arsenic problem in Bangladesh. Now you must have heard this is one of the world's biggest environmental disasters. Loke පාරිසරික ලොකුම පාරිසරික ප්‍රශ්නයක්. What happened? What happened was, you see, these are people who have diseases from too much arsenic in the water. What happened was, in Bangladesh and Bengal, India, western Bengal, water comes down from the Himalayas, from the rivers, Ganges River, Brahmaputra and these rivers, and they come flow into the sea in Bangladesh areas, Bengal. And there the arsenic, which is carried by the soils, by the sediments, are deposited. Ganga වතුරත් එක්ක ඇවිල්ලා තැන්පත්. So arsenic is very high in those sediments. Moya කටවල, deltas. So what happened? Now those people there in the Bangladesh area didn't have water very much. So some British people and aid people, other countries, they said these are poor people, we'll give them water. And they started drilling millions of tube wells and giving them water. What did they do? When the tube well went into the sediments, arsenic came into the water. Arsenic was buried. Nature had buried it. ස්වභාව ධර්මය ඒක ලස්සනට තැන්පත් කරලා තිබ්බේ පොළොව යට. But these people went and took it out. And the water was now rich in arsenic. Millions of people, women, children, everybody got affected by arsenic. And that is why those people had that. Here now this is the Bangladesh area. You see those red patches there. That is the highest arsenic contents. Very, very high arsenic levels. Can you see these? From the Himalayas all the way down, arsenic comes deposited. Very, very rich in arsenic. And that is where those people gave water. And this is what happened. All these children have arsenocosis, a disease. For generations, paramparaga, they will suffer. Next generation, so because of the arsenic. You see, directly again from the rocks to the soils to the human body. Relationship between rocks and very, very poor people, children. All affected by arsenic. Not their fault, but because some stupid person, without testing for arsenic, gave them water. This is the most dangerous thing. Never give drinking water without testing. Now this is another one, also from Sri Lanka. You have this problem with iodine, mostly for women. You see this Galaganda roga, iodine deficiency, goiter, because of a deficiency or not enough iodine in the environment. For some reason, the rock soils will not have enough iodine. You can give salt, iodized salt, salt containing iodine, that will help. But what happens is when we cook, we boil our curries so much, iodine is very volatile. It goes to the ceiling. Iodine ends up in the ceiling and not in the curry. So these people have this problem. This is from Angunavela area close to Kandy here. In that area, somehow these people suffer from this iodine deficiency disease. Here is a map showing that iodine deficiency diseases all over the world, mostly those tropical regions, Africa a lot, some parts of South America as well. Sri Lanka is included. Now it is a wet zone mostly which doesn't have iodine because iodine gets leached out very easily. That is why it's there. Then there is an interesting relationship. Hard water is cool water where the calcium and magnesium is very high. Some say that those living in areas where the water is very hard has a good effect on the heart. But again, it's a relationship. Doctors don't really believe it, but it's worth experimenting. Many countries have shown this. Where people are living in hard water areas, the health is good for the heart. But that is it. Now this, you might wonder what this is. This is a stone, kidney stone. Akugaduwaka hadena galak. Or bladder stone. Mutra gal. This is also rock-like thing, minerals, some minerals in here. But the rock is, the minerals are formed in the body. Again, because of the chemistry of the water that they drink, oxalates are formed. Sometimes they can be very large. You see here, quite a large stone. Very painful, and doctors had to remove this, depending on the area where you come from. So you can make sections, like I told you earlier, the sections of these under the microscope, and you find layers and layers, beautiful layers of various compounds, like that here. They are precipitating, avakshepa vima, they are inside the body. Then this is similar, this is a case in Jaffna mostly, where you have a pit, latrine, toilet, and water wells close by. And underneath you have the limestones, Punuga. So what happens is, through the limestone, which breaks very easily, the water from the pit latrine can easily get into the toilet. There. If the distance is very short, you get nitrates and lots of things from the pit latrine into the water and you get diseases. So this is a problem in the northern peninsula, Jaffna region. See how the rocks control. If it was a very hard rock like here, that won't happen. Because this is a loose rock, easily breakable, with lots of fractures, you can get this kind of situation. And you have a whole series of reactions forming nitrosamines, nitrates, forming cancer. So again, this cancer is really caused by the groundwater having lots of nitrates. Now this, you might wonder, it looks like milk toffees. Well, it is a toffee in a way, but it is made of clay. No milk, no sugar, nothing, only clay. But these are sold in various countries. I don't know Sri Lanka, but certainly these are sold. Clay toffees, mati. People eat this. Why? This is called geophagy. The name is geophagy. There is the people who eat this want to eat it. They like it. They have a desire, asavati, matika. That is because if you really seriously look into this, why? That means the body is asking for something. Isn't it? The body, you want to eat it because you feel like it and the body is asking for it. So there is something in that clay which the body needs. Especially women eat this. Not young girls like you all, but pregnant mothers. Darula denda inna ayata asawatti matikan. Reason, something in the clay element, some compound, something is there which the body needs. Here again, these are sold, here, all clay. This is South America, lot of it for sale, and it is selling. See, this woman here, South American woman, is actually looking for this clay to eat. Not all clays, but certain clays which have a special taste. There she is drinking. And here, this is in Germany also here, clay for sale to eat, clay powder. Now if you think human beings eat clay, no, here these birds are also looking for that clay. They are eating this special clay. Here, that parrot is eating that clay. Not all clays, they specifically look for a special type of clay. Elephants, this is from Udawala, they are eating clay. So again, you have to ask the question, why are they eating clay? Because they need it, and there is something in that clay which the body needs. Maybe iron, maybe something else, we don't know. But it's very interesting. Directly from the rocks to the soil to the body. It's not working. Right, so that was interesting. Now again, another, my time is slowly running out. This is radioactivity. You know, there are certain areas on Earth, even in Sri Lanka, Kaluwal area, in the Gaul area, where the beach sands, there is a lot of natural radioactivity. Radioactivity is very high in nature, in the rocks, in the soils, in the beach sands. And people are living on these in these areas. How is their health? Interestingly, in those areas, there is no real problem for some of them. In India, you get a large area of, where the natural radioactivity is extremely high. But the health seems to be okay. There are these areas south of India. Then another thing, this is a Chinese man who suffers from selenium problems. The element selenium is also important. He doesn't have it or he has too much selenium. Selenosis. Again, directly from the rocks to the human being, the health, rocks and health relationship. Now this is not due to mosquito or anything like that. This is an African disease. You've got the foot here. It is a mineral. These people in Africa, they work in fields like paddy fields. They go barefooted, right? No shoes. And some minerals get into the body through the feet. And the leg starts swelling. Podoconiosis, a disease because of the soil conditions. Directly again from the rocks to the soil to health. And these are some of the areas where this is found. Africa mostly. Here is a map of China where I told you selenium. You see those patches? Selenium, very high regions of selenium. And you get those diseases. So you can map areas, chemical maps, showing the disease patterns in China. So again, rocks to health correlation. So I think my time is up. And I have given you some thoughts, something to think about. As I said, don't think in terms of just chemistry, physics, those things they don't work that way. They are all connected. Look at the whole problem. Look at all the science, the overlaps. And this example I gave you from geology, you think geology has nothing to do with medicine, but you see how close it is. From Sri Lanka, I gave you examples. So think differently, think holistically, and then science becomes very, very interesting. So I hope I have given you some thoughts, food for thought. Thank you very much.